I never thought my marriage would end over a dog, but there we were. Me standing in the kitchen, still in my pajamas, trying to hold back tears, while Bryce, my husband of 10 years, zipped up a suitcase like he was heading out for a business trip. Only this time, he wasn't coming back. He looked at me, cold, flat eyes, and said, "I'm taking Zeus. You get the kid." No goodbye. No discussion. Just that. Zeus is our golden retriever. We got him before our son Eli was born. He's practically part of the family. Slept at the foot of our bed, chased Eli around the yard, even rescued socks from the laundry basket like it was his job, and Bryce just claimed him like a piece of luggage. I remember standing there frozen. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but then she chimed in. Joan, his mother, always lurking just close enough to comment, but never far enough to be helpful. She was standing by the door, fake pearls around her neck and an actual smirk on her face. "Well," she chuckled, "at least the dog's trained." They laughed like my son was some broken toy I now had to keep, while they got to walk off with the prize. Like being a mother full-time in the middle of a divorce was the losing hand. I felt like the oxygen had been pulled out of the room, but I didn't say anything then. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of them. I just turned and picked up Eli's drawing off the counter, one he made of the three of us holding hands under a giant sun, and walked straight past them, because he was in the next room. Eli, 9 years old, sitting cross-legged on the carpet, headphones in, coloring. He didn't see the storm breaking apart around him. Not yet. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself. He will never think he was the problem. Let Bryce take the dog. Let Joan think she won. I'd take the kid. I wanted the kid. And I was going to protect him from everything, especially from the people who laughed at his pain. But that's not the part I came here to tell you. The part you need to hear is what happened a few weeks later on court day. That's when my son, my sweet, quiet, observant Eli, walked up to the judge, cleared his throat, and asked, "Mom, can I read what Dad texted me last night?" The whole courtroom went dead silent. The judge raised his eyebrow. Bryce's lawyer's face went completely pale. Joan, sitting behind us in a navy blue blazer and smug expression, looked like she'd swallowed her own tongue. And in that moment, right there in front of everyone, Eli held something more powerful than any lawyer ever could. The truth. He was just 9, but he knew, and for the first time, the adults in that room had no choice but to listen. But let me take you back to the beginning so you understand why that moment changed everything. Because it wasn't just one bad fight. It wasn't one toxic comment. It was years of quiet erasure, gaslighting, Bryce making me feel like I was always overreacting, always too emotional, always the one ruining everything. It was subtle but constant. When Eli cried after Bryce yelled, it was my fault for not teaching him to toughen up. When I asked for help, I was nagging. When I finally said I wanted out, he told people I was unstable, that he was just trying to hold the family together, and people believed him. They always did, because he's charming, good with words, great smile, the kind of guy who calls waitresses sweetheart and gets away with it. But Eli saw things no one else did. He saw how his dad's face changed the second we were behind closed doors. He saw how I'd stop mid-sentence when Bryce walked into the room. He noticed that I never laughed anymore. Not really. And when Bryce took the dog and walked out of our lives like we were leftovers, Eli didn't cry. He just sat next to me that night holding Zeus's old collar and said, "I don't think Dad likes us very much." That was the beginning of the end, and unknowingly the start of the truth finally coming to light. When people picture a single mom going through a custody battle, they often imagine chaos, screaming, slamming doors, cops being called. But that's not how mine started. Mine began in silence. It was the silence after my husband Bryce left with our dog and a smirk. The kind of silence that follows a tornado. Not noisy, just empty. Every drawer he cleared, every coat he took off the hook, it all echoed through the house like a whisper saying, "He's gone." At first, Eli didn't ask many questions. He just kept drawing, sketching superheroes, sunsets, and sometimes pictures of our dog Zeus with a cape. I pretended everything was fine. I overcompensated. Homemade lunches with handwritten notes, extra bedtime stories. I let him fall asleep in my bed most nights because he was afraid of the dark again. He hadn't been since kindergarten. Our little two-bedroom apartment wasn't fancy, but it was ours. I had painted Eli's room light blue and strung little star-shaped lights around the ceiling. He liked it when the stars watched over him. I worked from home as a freelance designer, taking on odd jobs while Eli was at school. It paid the bills barely, but it gave me time with him, and I wasn't about to give that up for anything. The mornings were the hardest. That's when I noticed how much things had changed. I'd wake up and find Eli already dressed, sitting quietly at the table, staring at the cereal box, but not eating. He used to bounce around in the morning asking 100 questions about dinosaurs and space and how many teeth sharks really have. Now he was just still. I knew he was hurting, and I didn't know how to fix it. When Bryce and I first met, he was magnetic, confident, charming, ambitious. He made me feel seen, in a way I hadn't felt in years. I was 23, working at a print shop, so he came in to get business cards and left with my number. Within a year, we were married. By the time Eli was born, I had already started making excuses for him. At first, it was little things. He'd forget to pick me up after work, or he'd joke about me letting myself go right after I gave birth. He called it banter. I called it a bad day. But those bad days turned into a pattern. He controlled the money, the thermostat, the way I parented. When Eli got a cold, Bryce accused me of letting him get soft by letting him rest. When Eli got scared after a nightmare, Bryce told him, "Boys don't cry." That's when I started sleeping with the baby monitor on. Even when Eli was 6, not to hear Eli. He didn't cry out anymore. But to hear Bryce. People didn't see that side of him. They saw the Bryce who hosted backyard barbecues and gave funny toasts. Joan, his mother especially, she thought Bryce walked on water. She once told me, "You're lucky he puts up with your moods." And I remember staring at her, wondering how many other women had been silenced with that same sentence. I was exhausted, not just from parenting, but from pretending we were a happy family, pretending I wasn't shrinking inside my own home, pretending Eli was okay. The final straw wasn't dramatic. No cheating scandal. No screaming match. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Bryce came home late, tossed his keys on the counter, and asked if Eli had finished his spelling homework. I said, "Yes." He said, "Good, because I don't want him ending up like you, barely scraping by." He said it casually, like he was talking about the weather, and then he walked into the next room to check his emails. That night, I waited until he was asleep. I got up, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and cried on the floor. Not because I was sad, but because I finally knew I was done. It took 3 more weeks for him to leave. And when he did, he didn't pack up quietly. He took Zeus, his dignity, and any sense of decency he had left and told me, "You get the kid." That phrase kept replaying in my mind. You get the kid. Like Eli was some unwanted item in a divorce auction. But the truth is, I wanted the kid because he was kind, empathetic, smart. He saw people in ways adults couldn't. And if Bryce couldn't see the value in that, then Eli didn't need him. I didn't know then how much Eli had noticed. I didn't know how much he'd been holding in. But I'd find out soon. And so would the judge. The first custody meeting was in a sterile office downtown. Beige walls, leather chairs, a fake fern in the corner designed to feel neutral. It didn't. Bryce walked in, 10 minutes late, wearing a blazer and smiling like he was the one getting interviewed. Joan trailed behind him, uninvited, but smugly planted herself in the waiting area with a Tupperware of homemade banana bread she offered to the receptionist, like we were all one big happy family. I sat across from Bryce and watched him perform. Polite, calm, the concerned father. He talked about routine, stability, and his deep commitment to Eli's well-being. Every word made my skin crawl because I knew who he really was behind closed doors. He wanted shared custody, week on, week off. I was stunned. This man hadn't called Eli once since he left. Not a single FaceTime, not even a text. When he came to pick up his mail, he stood outside like a stranger and never asked how Eli was doing, and now he wanted half of Eli's life handed back to him like a pizza order. I tried to stay composed, but the words rushed out. He doesn't even check on his son. He doesn't show up. Why does he get half? Bryce leaned back and smiled. Because I'm his father. That's when I realized this wasn't about Eli. This was about control, about winning, about image. And Bryce wasn't doing it alone. Joan started inserting herself into everything. She'd email me passive-aggressively, just checking in to make sure Eli's eating enough greens. He's looking a little puffy in that school photo. Then there were the school drop-offs. Bryce would suddenly appear unannounced, wearing his #1 dad hoodie, waving to the other parents, handing Eli granola bars like he was the provider of the year. And Eli? He looked confused, uncomfortable. He stopped smiling in the mornings. At home, I noticed a shift. Eli had more questions now, harder ones. Why does Dad say you don't want me to see him? Did you tell him I'm scared of his house? Is it bad to cry when I miss Zeus? That one gutted me. He missed the dog so badly, he'd started drawing Zeus into family photos. Except now Zeus was always standing between me and Eli, almost like a protector. One night Eli came to me and whispered, "Dad told me not to tell you, but he says you cry too much and I'll be messed up if I live with you all the time." I sat down on the floor in the hallway and just held him. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I couldn't afford to give Bryce that satisfaction. Instead, I documented everything. I kept a journal, saved screenshots of every manipulative message. I made copies of the few emails Joan slipped up and sent directly, things like, "If Eli doesn't learn discipline, he'll end up like your side of the family." Meanwhile, Bryce was getting bolder. He started sending Eli texts like, "Your mom says no again. Surprise." Or, "Wish I could see you more, but your mom wants to keep you away." It was textbook alienation. But trying to explain that to a judge, it felt like trying to prove a ghost existed. My lawyer, Denise, was careful but honest. She said, "Unless there's abuse or something solid on paper, judges like balance. They won't favor one parent without evidence." Evidence. That word haunted me, because most of the damage Bryce did wasn't through bruises or threats. It was through tone, through lies passed like candy, through erosion. Eli was being eroded. Still, the court date was set. I had 2 weeks to prepare. I spent every night going through our text chains, organizing dates and entries, building the quietest case of my life. Then one night, I went to check on Eli and found him sitting up in bed, his face pale, holding his tablet. "Mom?" he asked, his voice small. "I don't think Dad meant for me to see this." He handed me the screen. I scrolled through the messages, my stomach twisting with every word. There it was in black and white. Bryce texting someone, his new girlfriend maybe, ranting about how Eli was soft, how "I'll get him fixed once I get more custody." And the worst one, "Can't wait to be done with that brat so I can get my real life back." Eli looked at me, eyes glassy, and asked, "Is it my fault he doesn't want me?" I felt my entire body go cold. "No," I said. "No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect. Your dad is the one who's broken. That night, I knew we had our evidence, not just for the judge, but for Eli. He deserved to be heard, and soon he would be. The night Eli showed me those texts from Bryce, something inside me shifted. Up until that moment, I'd been fighting to survive the storm. But now, I wasn't just reacting. I was ready to fight back. I sat on Eli's bed, holding the tablet, reading the words over and over. Can't wait to be done with that brat so I can get my real life back. He cries like a baby, just like his mom. Useless. He had sent them to Eli by mistake, meant for someone else. Maybe the woman he'd been seeing, or one of his buddies he shared his poor single dad sob stories with. But now it was too late. Eli saw it, and so did I. I took a breath and looked at my son. His face was pale and still, like he was trying to disappear into his blanket. He didn't want comfort. He wanted truth. "Did you read all of it?" I asked. He nodded. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stop. I thought maybe I was bad. "No," I said immediately. "You are not bad, Eli. He's wrong. He's so wrong." And I meant it. Every word. This wasn't just about getting custody anymore. This was about breaking a cycle, making sure Eli didn't grow up thinking love was something you had to earn by being quiet, by pleasing people who didn't deserve you. So I printed the screenshots, labeled them by date, and backed them up on a flash drive. I contacted Denise, my lawyer, first thing the next morning. Her voice tightened as I read her some of the messages. "This is big," she said. "This changes everything. We can use this, but we have to be strategic. Bryce will claim it was out of context or that his phone was hacked. We need Eli to be willing to speak if it comes to that." I looked at Eli's bedroom door, still cracked open from when I left. "He's 9, I said quietly. "I don't want to put him through that." Denise was silent for a moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes protecting our kids means letting them tell their truth, even when it's hard, even when it hurts us to watch." I spent the next few days preparing, not just documents, but myself. I had to be ready for Bryce to spin this. I had to be ready for Joan to stand up in that courtroom and call me a liar. Oh, I had to be ready for Eli to possibly face his father and say what needed to be said. And honestly, I wasn't sure I was strong enough. But then something happened that reminded me why I had to be. It was a Thursday afternoon. Eli came home from school, dropped his backpack by the door, and said, "Mom, can I tell you something?" I sat down on the couch, and he sat next to me, fidgeting with the zipper on his jacket. Connor's dad asked me if I was okay. He said I seemed sad. Connor was Eli's best friend. His dad, Tom, was one of those good dads, the kind who coached soccer and remembered everyone's snack allergies. "What did you say?" I asked. Eli shrugged. I said I was fine. But then Connor told his dad that my dad doesn't come around anymore, and that you cry sometimes when you think I'm asleep. My chest tightened. I didn't think he knew. "Tom told me," Eli continued, "that when grown-ups mess up, kids don't have to pretend everything's okay. He said it's not my job to protect Dad's feelings." He looked up at me. "Is that true?" I felt tears sting my eyes, but I held them back. "Yes, baby. That's true." That night, I asked Eli if he wanted to talk to the judge. Not because I needed him to, but because he deserved the choice. He thought about it for a long time. Then he said, "I want to. I don't want Dad to keep lying." And just like that, my 9-year-old became braver than I'd ever been. Before I continue, I need to pause and say something real. If you're listening to this right now, I need your help with something. My mother, bless her heart, she told me I'd never even reach 1,000 subscribers with stories like this. She said nobody cares about messy custody battles or single moms fighting back. She said I should just move on and stop airing dirty laundry. But I don't believe that. I believe stories like this, Real stories about real people surviving real betrayal, they matter. They deserve to be heard. So if you're still with me, if this story means something to you, hit that subscribe button. Not for me. For every parent out there who's been told they're not enough. For every kid who's been used as a pawn. For every person who's been gaslit into thinking they're the problem. Let's prove her wrong together. Let's show the world that truth is louder than shame. Okay, back to the story. Because what happened next, it's the part I'll never forget. The week before the court date, Bryce ramped up his game. He started posting on social media. Pictures of him volunteering at a youth center. Throwback photos of him and Eli at the park, captioned, "Miss my little man every day, fighting for you, buddy." It was disgusting, but it was also predictable. Joan joined in too. She shared an article about parental alienation with the caption, "Some mothers use children as weapons. Pray for the fathers." I wanted to scream, but Denise told me to stay quiet. "Let them talk," she said. "Let them build their narrative. We've got the receipts." Still, the pressure was getting to me. I wasn't sleeping. I'd lie awake replaying every moment, every argument, every time I should have left sooner. I kept thinking, what if the judge doesn't believe us? What if they think I coached Eli? What if Bryce walks away with shared custody and I have to send my son to a house where he's called a brat? One night I broke down. I called my sister, Vanessa. She lives 3 states away, but she's the only family I have that actually shows up. "I don't know if I can do this," I told her. "What if I'm ruining Eli's life?" Vanessa was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You're not ruining his life. You're teaching him that love doesn't look like cruelty, and that's worth fighting for." She was right. I just had to hold on a little longer. The morning of the court date, I woke up at 5 a.m. I couldn't eat. I made Eli pancakes, his favorite, but he only ate half. He was nervous too. I could see it in the way he kept tying and retying his shoes. "You don't have to do this," I told him one more time. He looked at me with those big, serious eyes and said, "I know, but I want to." We drove to the courthouse in silence. I parked, turned off the car, and just sat there for a moment. Eli reached over and squeezed my hand. "We're going to be okay, Mom." And I believed him. Inside, the courthouse was cold and intimidating. High ceilings, marble floors, people in suits walking past like they owned the place. Bryce was already there, sitting on a bench with Joan beside him. He was wearing a navy suit and a concerned expression. Joan had her fake pearls on and a Bible in her lap. I'm not kidding. A Bible. Denise met us by the elevators. She knelt down to Eli's level and said, "You're very brave. No matter what happens in there, you tell the truth, okay? Just the truth." Eli nodded. We walked into the courtroom, and I felt my stomach drop. It was smaller than I expected. Just a few rows of seats, a judge's bench, and a witness stand. But it felt huge, like the whole world was watching. So the judge, an older man named Judge Callahan, entered and everyone stood. He had gray hair, glasses, and a no-nonsense expression. He looked tired, like he'd seen 1,000 cases just like ours. "Please be seated," he said. And just like that, it began. Bryce's lawyer went first. His name was Keith. Slick hair, expensive watch, the kind of guy who probably drove a sports car and thought it made him interesting. He painted Bryce as a devoted father who'd been unfairly shut out of his son's life. He talked about Bryce's stable job, his clean home, his commitment to co-parenting. He made it sound like I was the villain, like I was keeping Eli away out of spite. "Your Honor," Keith said, "my client simply wants what every father deserves. Time with his son. A chance to be a dad." I wanted to stand up and scream, but I didn't. I sat there, my hands folded, trying to look calm. Denise would get her turn, And she did. When it was our turn, Denise stood up and didn't waste time. Your Honor, this isn't about a father wanting time with his son. This is about a man who abandoned his child, took the family dog, and has spent the last several weeks manipulating and alienating that same child through text messages. Keith jumped up. Objection. Speculation. Judge Callahan looked at Denise. Do you have evidence of these messages? Denise smiled. We do, Your Honor. She pulled out the printed screenshots, organized in a folder, and handed copies to the judge and to Keith. I watched Keith's face change as he read them. He went pale. Judge Callahan read slowly, his expression hardening with each page. Then Denise said, We also have a witness, Your Honor. The child himself. Eli would like to address the court. Bryce's head snapped up. Joan gasped. Keith stammered, Your Honor, the child is 9. He shouldn't be subjected to this kind of pressure. Judge Callahan looked at Eli, who was sitting next to me, small but steady. Son, the judge said gently, do you want to speak? Eli stood up. His hands were shaking, but his voice was clear. Yes, sir. The judge nodded. Come on up. Eli walked to the front of the courtroom, and I swear, time stopped. Every eye was on him. This little boy in his button-up shirt and jeans, carrying his tablet. He stepped up to the witness stand, and the judge asked him to sit down. You don't have to be scared, Judge Callahan said. Just tell me what you want to say. Eli took a breath. Then he said, I brought something I want to read. My dad sent me these messages by accident. I don't think he meant for me to see them. The room went completely silent. Eli opened his tablet and started reading. Can't wait to be done with that brat so I can get my real life back. His voice wavered, but he kept going. He cries like a baby, just like his mom. Useless. I heard someone in the back of the room gasp. Joan's face went white. Bryce looked like he wanted to disappear. Eli kept reading. Once I get more custody, I'll get him fixed. Toughen him up. Maybe send him to military camp or something. Kids these days are too soft. Judge Callahan's jaw tightened. Keith was frantically whispering to Bryce, but Bryce just sat there, frozen. Eli looked up from the tablet, his eyes wet but defiant. My dad said he wanted me, but he doesn't, or he just doesn't want my mom to have me. Then Eli did something I'll never forget. He looked right at Bryce and said, I heard you laugh when Grandma said I wasn't trained like Zeus. You took the dog because you liked him more. I know that now. The silence in that courtroom was deafening. Judge Callahan removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Then he looked at Bryce. Mr. Harrison, do you have anything to say? Bryce stood up, his lawyer pulling at his arm, but he shook him off. Your Honor, those messages, they were taken out of context. I was venting. I didn't mean, you called your son a brat, the judge interrupted. You said you wanted to be done with him. In what context is that acceptable? Bryce stammered. Joan stood up from her seat. Your Honor, if I may, sit down, Judge Callahan said sharply. Joan sat. The judge turned back to Eli. Thank you for your honesty, son. That took a lot of courage. Then he looked at me. Ms. Trent, I've reviewed your documentation. I've read the messages. I've heard your son. And I've seen enough. He turned to Bryce. Mr. Harrison, I'm granting full custody to the mother. You will have supervised visitation only, pending a psychological evaluation and completion of a parenting course. And frankly, sir, if you ever send messages like that to your child again, you'll be hearing from Child Protective Services. Bryce's face went red. Keith tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. This hearing is adjourned. And just like that, it was over. I sat there, stunned. I couldn't process it. Denise put her hand on my shoulder. You did it, she whispered. Eli walked back to me, and then I pulled him into the tightest hug of my life. You were so brave, I told him. So, so brave. He hugged me back and whispered, Can we go home now? Yes, baby. We can go home. As we walked out of the courtroom, Bryce tried to approach us. Eli, wait. But Eli didn't stop. He held my hand tighter and kept walking. Joan called after us, something about how we'd regret this, but her voice faded into the background. Outside, the sun was shining. It felt like a sign, like the universe was saying, You made it through the storm. Eli looked up at me and smiled. A real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months. I don't have to go to his house? He asked. Not unless you want to, I said, and only with someone there to make sure you're safe. He nodded, relief washing over his face. Good. Because I just want to stay with you. The weeks after the court ruling were strange. Not bad, strange. Just different. It was like we were learning how to breathe again. Eli started laughing more. He joined the school's art club and made a sculpture of a superhero dog. It's Zeus, he told me, but in this version, he saves people instead of just lying around. He was healing, slowly. So was I. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for Bryce to send some manipulative message. I stopped flinching when the doorbell rang. I started sleeping through the night. Bryce did show up for his first supervised visit. It was awkward and tense. He tried to act like everything was fine, like nothing had happened. But Eli wasn't having it. When Bryce asked him about school, Eli gave one-word answers. When Bryce tried to joke around, so Eli just stared at him. After an hour, Eli asked the supervisor if he could leave, and we did. On the drive home, Eli said, I don't think I want to see him again for a while. That's okay, I told him. You get to decide. And I meant it. Joan tried to reach out a few times. Emails, voicemails, even a letter. All of them blaming me, saying I'd poisoned Eli against his father. I deleted them all. I wasn't engaging anymore. That chapter was closed. But the best part, the part that made everything worth it, came a few months later. Eli came home from school one day with a huge smile on his face. Mom, guess what? What, baby? Connor's family's getting a dog, and his dad asked if I wanted to help pick it out because I know a lot about dogs. My heart swelled. That's amazing, Eli. He grinned. And Mom, I think maybe one day we could get a dog too. Not to replace Zeus, but just because it would be nice. I pulled him into a hug. I think that sounds perfect. And it did, because we were building something new, something better, something that was just ours. As for Bryce, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he moved to another city, started fresh, or whatever he told himself he was doing. Joan stopped contacting me altogether. I don't know if she ever realized how much damage she enabled, but it doesn't matter anymore. They're not part of our story now. Eli is thriving. He's confident, happy, kind. He still asks hard questions sometimes, like, do you think Dad ever loved me? And I always tell him the truth. I think your dad loves the idea of you, but he doesn't know how to love the real you, and that's his loss. Not yours. People ask me sometimes if I regret how everything went down, if I wish I'd handled it differently. And honestly, no. I wish Bryce had been a better person. I wish Eli hadn't had to go through that. But I don't regret fighting. I don't regret letting Eli speak his truth. I don't regret protecting my son, even when it was terrifying. And here's the thing I want to leave you with. If you're in a situation like mine, if you're being told you're overreacting, if you're being gaslit into thinking you're the problem, listen to me. You're not crazy. You're not too emotional. You're not asking for too much. You deserve respect. Your kids deserve safety. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who make you feel small. Even if those people are family. Even if it's hard. even if it feels impossible. Eli taught me that. A 9-year-old boy taught me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway. It's about standing up and saying, "This is wrong," even when your voice shakes. It's about refusing to accept cruelty as love. So if my story did anything for you today, let it be this: you are worth fighting for. Your peace is worth protecting. And the people who truly love you will never make you question your reality. They'll never make you feel like you're too much or not enough. They'll just love you, fully, honestly, without conditions. As for me and Eli, we're doing great. We got that dog, by the way. A rescue mutt named Biscuit who snores like a lawnmower and steals socks just like Zeus used to. Eli says Biscuit has the best life because he gets to sleep in his room every night. And you know what? He's right. We all do. Because we're not just surviving anymore. We're actually living. And that's the real revenge. Not because we destroyed Bryce or made him pay, but because we chose ourselves. We chose peace. We chose truth. And we built a life worth living without him. That courtroom moment, when Eli stood up and read those messages, it wasn't just about custody. It was about a little boy taking back his voice. It was about breaking a cycle of manipulation and control. It was about saying, "I matter, and I refuse to be treated like I don't." And if that's not the most powerful form of revenge, I don't know what is. So thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And if you're fighting your own battle right now, know that you're not alone. The truth always comes out. It might take time. It might be painful, but it comes out. And when it does, you'll be ready. And hey, if you made it this far, you're part of something bigger than just a YouTube video. You're part of a community that believes in justice, in healing, in the power of speaking up. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment telling me your story, or just letting me know you're here. Because every single one of you matters. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And who knows? Maybe together, we can prove a lot of people wrong. Not just my mother, but everyone who ever said that truth doesn't matter, that fighting back is pointless, that revenge is best served by staying silent. Because I'm here to tell you, the best revenge is living well. It's healing. It's protecting the ones you love. It's refusing to let toxic people steal your joy. Eli knows that now, and so do I. We'll never forget what we went through, but we also won't let it define us. We're more than our trauma. We're survivors. We're fighters. We're proof that you can walk through hell and come out stronger on the other side. So here's to everyone out there doing the hard work. Here's to every parent fighting for their kids. Here's to every child brave enough to tell the truth. And here's to the people who said we wouldn't make it. Because look at us now. We're still standing. We're still here. And we're not going anywhere. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember, your story deserves to be heard. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.